Okay, let's try this again one last time. So I'm sure the two of you who watch this are saying two things. One, hey, your mic quality is much better. Thank you, I've been working on it. And two, where's the Live Alive video? Well, to start, I was originally planning to do Live Alive, but after playing the first chapter, I chose not to. I just wasn't feeling it. Maybe one day I'll go back to try it again, but I'm putting it in the backlog for now. Then I saw how Scarlet and Violet turned out and thought it'd be a good idea to do a video on the quality control of Game Freak as of late. I recorded footage of each game made by Game Freak I played through from start to end, with a portion of them. I wrote a 20-page script, and then my hard drive got corrupted and I lost all the footage. So, after everything that's happened thus far, plus school and improving my audio, I'm finally moving forward and continuing with video production. With that all explained, I'd like to get one thing out of the way. I love Fire Emblem. It's pretty obvious from my current avatar alone that I'm a huge fan of the series. I have every game released in the US, I have a bunch of merch autographs from voice actors. This is a series that's near and dear to my heart. If you want to ask what my feelings are on every game is, here's a tier list to save time. So with that all explained, I'll talk about this at some point. Boy, was I skeptical of Engage. Late last year, we got a trailer for this game and a Nintendo Direct, and I, like many people, were very confused at what I was looking at. People took issue with how much more anime this game looked compared to previous entries. And while I will argue the series always had anime-inspired art direction since its inception, the character design in this game looked a bit too colorful. I thought after Three Houses they had learned to maintain aesthetic elements more akin to Kaga-era Fire Emblem or post-Kaga-era Fire Emblem and less Fates. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Despite my problems, I was excited for another Fire Emblem game. I adored Three Houses and felt it was one of the best Fire Emblem entries in a long time. But, at the same time, while the story and characters were excellent, I felt its tactical combat wasn't its best the series had to offer, and was for something with just a bit more depth to it. And what we got was, well, let's start with the plot, spoilers, the story is dumb. You play the Divine Dragon, who serves as the avatar of this game. Canonically, their name is Alir, but because I wanted to be funny, I named them Aquafresh. One letter short from the whole thing, so work with what I have. Aquafresh wakes up in the realm of Elios, ran by the Divine Dragon Monarch, who happens to be your mom. She's greeted by her retainers, these twins here, and this old knight named Vander. You're told by your mom that the fell dragon Sombron waged war over 1,000 years ago, using rings that summon the spirits of protags from other realms called Emblem rings. Warriors of the Four Kingdoms that make up Elios, Farinay, Brodia, Sol, and Elusia were able to defeat Sombron and seal the Cobra Dragon-looking thing away. But now, for whatever reason, it's not really explained, Sombron's seals weaken and he's back to wreak havoc upon the world. Oh yeah, and the emblem ring you're first given just happens to be Marth. A few chapters later, before you have the chance to really care, this hooded girl shows up, indirectly kills your mom, and before you have time to process what just happened, you pinky promise your dying mom that you'll gather the 12 emblem rings and defeat Sombron. From there, you make your objective to not only find the 12 emblem rings, but also fight off one of the 4 countries of Elios, this one Sombron's aligned with, Elusia. And that's the plot. Most of the game from there is just that, Aquafresh going from country to country, meeting crowned royals of each kingdom, and collecting the rings to defeat Sombron. You are introduced to a mysterious girl named Vale, who plays a major role as the story goes on, and I will say her role in this story is one of the more engaging aspects of this narrative. After making your way through Farinay and Brodia, you charge into Elusia, where she's revealed to be Sombron's daughter, as well as the source of the corrupted, who serve as the undead army in this entry. She also killed Aquafresh's mom, which, meh. After all that's revealed, she steals the emblem rings you've gathered from Lythos, Farinay, and Brodia, and introduces her generals called the Four Hounds. But after all that happens, Aquafresh escapes and moves on to Sol to nab the ring that resides there. And after that, the rest of the story just amounts to you dealing with the Four Hounds, as well as helping Vale, as it's revealed that she has another personality created by the leader of the Four Hounds. You're essentially recollecting the rings they stole from you while dealing with them. Eventually, one of them defects for his own personal reasons, with the other with him tagging along, and sure enough, they lead you to Sombron. So, as you can no doubt tell, the story feels very by the numbers. Not as nuanced as the previous entry tried to be. I certainly felt while playing this that this game was going through the notions. You have your goody two-shoe archetype protagonist, your old man knight, your green and red retainers, a lot of the standard tropes you see in a Fire Emblem. Characters are certainly more playing the standard role. That's not to say the cast are completely forgettable in this game. While I found the story lackluster even midway through the game, the cast, while odd, did have a number of characters I genuinely liked. I like Diamet, the Crown Prince of Brodia. He felt like he could have been a protag from an earlier Fire Emblem entry, as well as his brother Alcaris. I like Ivy. I felt like she was a fanservice character done right, where she looked the part, but she had an actual character dealing with the reconstruction of Elusia after the death of her father. And I especially love my boy Zelkov. What's with me and liking the thief characters in the series? But no, I love this man. A thief who puts emphasis on words just because he can and takes up art as a hobby, all the meanwhile having a very cruel upbringing. Those are only highlights, though. There are other characters I like in this game, but I feel it's kind of undermined by how by the numbers the story is. Story plot twists just kind of happen, and I should note, this holds true to the end of the game as well. Alright, spoilers for this next part. Last chance to turn back or skip to the time card right here. After gathering the rest of the rings, we go to fight Sombron, but not before Gris of the Four Hounds tells us, "Hey, you're not a divine dragon, you're one of Sombron's last few fell children." Means very little, since the cast reacts like, doesn't really matter, so it doesn't really matter. Moving on. You confront Sombron, the two of the Four Hounds, and a mind control veil in which Marty attempts to break the mind control crown. Did I really just say that out loud? This is so stupid. And fails, with Zephyr killing her. With a distraught Mavier now fully joining your side, Sombron sees, "Hey, you gathered the rings. Yoink. I'm restored to full power. Die. Okay, I no longer need the rings. Bye now." Vale, seeing Aquafresh sacrifice herself, finds the will to break the mind control crown as it's revealed that Marty ended up cracking the thing during her failed attempt. And then Vale turns Aquafresh undead as a means to gather the rings for a map, only for her to die again, which revealed that the last emblem ring was Aquafresh all along. The Fire Emblem. This plot is so stupid. Freshly puts on the last ring, they go from an Aquafresh to a cool mint Colgate, and now with all the rings in hand as well as your own, you go off to fight Sombron proper this time. But not before you kill the last two of the Four Hounds and do a filler story where you temporarily time travel. Finally, confronting Sombron in the spaces of the multiverse, I kid you not, that's where this takes place, it's revealed he's from another realm altogether that was destroyed, and his whole motivation isn't to conquer, but to find one emblem that he held close to him from his realm, the Emblem of Foundations. What is it? I don't know. It's just a means to flesh out the shirtless Monster Dragon Man. So shirtless Monster Dragon Man loses, he does one final engage to vanish, but because we have to have an emotional goodbye, the interference from the rift Sombron created causes the emblems to vanish and become regular rings. Despite that though, Aquafresh is perfectly fine, even though she's an emblem. Alright. If it wasn't obvious enough, I thought the story was dumb. Again, the characters themselves can be good, albeit a bit too zany at times, but the actual plot is really stupid. The closest thing this game sets up for conflict between countries is Brodia and Elusia, where Elusia is aligned with Sombron, but Brodia's invasions keep causing problems for the citizens of Elusia. But that is immediately brushed off in the main storyline the moment it's introduced for you to get your ring stolen by Possessed Vale, which is a great story beat as the rings up to that point were absurdly overpowered, now taken away from you and you're left with different set of rings to gather while the enemies have what were your strongest tool in your arsenal. But then for the entirety of the game, you're stuck with the Four Hounds as your set of antagonists. No other opposing generals, no other master manipulators, it's just these four. And they just don't do it for me. Marty gives me spoiled child vibes, Gris is that weird sadistic kid who's into weird stuff, and Zephyr is just your standard skimpy female dark mage, which is a trope the series loves to use for female villains. The only one I really like is Mavier, but that's the obvious reason for that. Just looking at the guy, you know he's going to be a late game unit who joins you. Because of how cartoonish these guys are, I see not the main villains leading a war, more a teacher being stuck babysitting 3 schoolyard bullies. Sombron? Who cares? I thought the Four Hounds were nothing characters. This guy is practically non-existent in this game, and his design is less intimidating and more just flat-out goofy looking. He does nothing for most of the game, and I get the entire idea is that he's lost a lot of his power, so he can't really do much, but he's barely even on screen to begin with. Aquafresh having amnesia, I felt like they could have used her regaining her memories as a mean to show flashbacks of Sombra being intimidating, but the amnesia is really just a means for someone to explain to Aquafresh the world of Lythos and how it functions. It's obvious more use as a framing device and less an actual plot point. So, okay, story wasn't good, and characters in this game, in my opinion, are hit and miss, with hits being... But, while that's the case for the story and characters, the gameplay, however... Okay, structurally, this game is similar to the 3DS entries, more specifically FE Fates. You have a map that you can access chapters from, as well as skirmishes. Skirmishes, in this case, being random map battles you can do to gain bonuses like gold or SP, which play into the ring mechanic, more on that later. The My Castle of this game, otherwise known as the Somniel, you can do a multitude of things here outside of just buying items. A multitude of minigames to increase your bond points, more on that later. Adopt animals, elevate materials to reuse, feed this weird butt here. Do we fit exercising? Try on outfits, donate to other nations to obtain useful weapons, some of which are the best weapons locked behind this mechanic. Blacksmithing, which you can use to power your weapons and add effects to them with the use of the emblem rings. Arena fighting to gain XP and bond levels, more on that later. The Somniel offers a lot to do with very little excitement behind it. I found a lot of the stuff in the Somniel to be busy work compared to the actual tactical gameplay. Now, to be fair, it's mostly optional, at least in normal and hard mode. You can get away with playing through the game without doing much in the Somniel. The actual tactical combat, though, felt like a nice return to form compared to the previous entry. If you felt like the map design in Three Houses was a bit on the basic side, this game brings back just about every map trope in the series. Tower defense, escape, fog of war, a good old bridge, an unnavigable terrain, desert, boats, pretty much anything you can think of is here. And it's easily the best part about this game. The map design is absolutely superb and is a definite step up from the previous entry. But map tropes aren't the only thing this game brings back. This game brings back the weapon triangle from previous entries. With its return, they add the break mechanic. If you have a unit hit an enemy with the weapon advantage and enough damage output, or if the enemy does that to a unit, the weapon will break and leave the unit in question without the ability to attack for a battle. I didn't like this mechanic at first, but once I understood the full capability of this mechanic, I took full advantage of it. Hit an enemy soldier with a weapon break, and then hit him with a unit who otherwise wouldn't be effective. It's nice chip damage. What I didn't so much use were the guard mechanic and the arts. Useful in premise, being able to break colorless unit weapons or being able to guard an attack from a non-cutting enemy, but the arts sacrifice damage output for utility. I only found use for these if they were a secondary weapon type. I mainly stuck to the conventional weapon types the series is known for. But that's not the only mechanic this game brings. The name of the game are the rings. Equip a previous protagonist, selected, and... engage! The character equipped transforms to resemble the protagonist in question. Honestly, this whole idea makes me think of something out of a Super Sentai or Tokusatsu show, despite not being really into that sort of thing. When engaged, your stats get buffed, and your unit gains access to an engage skill for 3 turns. Skills can vary from hitting an enemy a multitude of times, attacking 3 enemies in a row, giving characters an extra turn. With how powerful these rings are, you'd think they'd be a one-time thing, but quite the opposite actually. There are these spots here that offer one-time refills for the ring user. Place a unit on this spot, and sure enough, you get a refill with the ring user in question, with another use of the skill to boot. I like the idea of what is essentially assigning a combat art to an emblem ring, as well as a plethora of skills. However, what I don't so much like is that in order to use skills without the emblem ring equipped, you need to spend a ridiculous amount of SP to learn them. Now, this isn't too big of an issue, seeing as how every emblem skill set is accessible as long as you have the ring equipped, and you only have 2 skill slots to really use outside of what the equipped ring offers. But if you want to mix and match emblem ring skills, you're either going to have to be cautious on what you spend it on, or grind for them. A bit of a disappointment for customizing units if you ask me, but nothing that would kill the game. What can kill the game for a player is that these emblem rings are also tied to how you class change in this game. See, in other Fire Emblem games, all that required was a Master Seal or other promotion item and the right level. Here, there's an added step. You need to improve your proficiency via the bond of an emblem ring who has said proficiency. Yeah, so that scene where Vale goes evil and takes your rings, before that happens, make sure you hit the arena and make sure your units are proficient in every weapon type available, because otherwise you could potentially lock yourself out of reclassing units. Now, to be fair, this game does warn you before starting the map to bond level your weapon proficiencies, because otherwise you're stuck with what you have. I think this easily could have been avoided if you just simply had the classes tied to a masterclass seal or a second seal. Those rings that were stolen from you, you're not getting them back till late game. You're stuck with the other ring types like Ike, and I hope you've gotten plenty of mileage out of the rings like Roy and Marth, especially Marth, who's one of the last rings you get back. You can mitigate this with DLC, and they offer proficiencies that you might have lost out on, but you shouldn't need to buy DLC to fix a problem with a game. I won't lie, after playing this game and finally finishing everything this had to offer, I don't see myself replaying this game anytime soon. The story doesn't offer much. Graphically, it looks good for Switch standards, though with the frame drops, you can tell it's pushing the hardware. Musically, it was solid, but with how linear the adventure is, how little the game offers in terms of replay value due to how dependent your units are on the Emblem rings and what little units are actually viable outside of the rings. Did I forget to mention that all the paralogs of this game offer are more ring scales? This is very much a one and done adventure for me. I did enjoy my time, but I don't intend to replay this game anytime. I think this is worth buying after a price drop, and seeing as how this game, from what I understand, didn't do well as Three Houses in terms of sales, fortunately that might be soon. In the meantime, I'll just replay FE7 for the upkeep time now on NSO. Hey guys, just want to wrap this video up with a quick update. I feel like I'm overdue for that. Now I want to apologize for taking so long. I got some personal life stuff sorted out, I'm busy with classes, but I have no intention of the next video taking so long to make as this one did. Next video is going to be comparing and contrasting the additions made in the Mario RPG remake to the original, and that shouldn't take as long as this did. I'll be sure to schedule my editing sessions now, so stay tuned for that. Also, special thanks to my friend Nightmare for making the thumbnail. It turned out great. I am so sorry it took so long to make this. In the meantime, I'm the Rogue Lord. Here's to the next chapter in my journey. Boy, this video took forever.